We're here with the CBS NFL Today crew getting ready for Super Bowl 58, doing lots of things around town here in Las Vegas. I want to start right here with Boomer and discuss what this means for the city of Las Vegas to finally get a Super Bowl, and not just that, but kind of becoming a sports mecca.
Yeah, it's really amazing when you think back to when Phil and I played and Coach was coaching. We weren't allowed to come out to Las Vegas, and here we are getting ready to celebrate Super Bowl 58. It is amazing to see what the Raiders have turned into. Certainly the Aces are champions. You have the Knights on the cusp as a Stanley Cup champion. You have the Oakland A's moving here to Las Vegas now, just waiting for an NBA team to move in here. The growth of sports outside of sports gambling has been nothing short of amazing in our eyes, and I know we're all excited to be here come February 2024 for Super Bowl 58.
Coach, as Boomer mentioned, there's been tons of games, Super Bowls, events, NFL things that you'll have been a part of here in different places around the country. So I wanted to ask you specifically, just what makes a Super Bowl city great?
I think the options that you have going there, the different hotels you have here, just the entertainment that it offers you. You're looking at a city that when you come here, you have shows, you have plays, you have music, and certainly you have gambling. Okay, so this is a place that people come to just to get away from every day, and also now you bring the football group into the city. You bring the biggest game of the year into this city. It just magnifies everything, and the options just become enormous. And I think that's the thing people look for, are options of entertainment. And I think Las Vegas offers that more than any other city in the United States.
Wow. Phil, I hear you agreeing on some of these things. Just in your experience, has there been a particular experience that you had with a Super Bowl that really stood out to you, and what was it about it that really made it special?
Not as much as this one. Las Vegas, the city of sin, gambling, and now it's really the mecca of pro sports, and it's gonna. The Boomer just said it. When's the basketball team coming? We know it's. We don't even talk about it. I just think I take it for granted. We all do that. Within the next 5 years, somewhere an NBA team's going to go. Let's go join us. And the entertainment here. I kind of forgot. It's been a long time since I've been here. We were going up and down the strip yesterday. And you just see all these stars that are out here doing their shows and their restaurants and everything. This is the greatest place to have a Super Bowl. It is. Entertainment, weather, whatever. A lot of people love to come to the Super Bowl and play golf and do those things. It has everything they want. And I think this is going to be one of the hardest tickets ever to get in Super Bowl history. I believe it will be the hardest.
And Jonathan, you've been working with CBS for a few years now as an NFL insider. As you see a city grow the way it has exponentially with every sport coming in, possibly NBA, just when you think about the magnitude of how much it takes for a city to really embrace that, and for a city to really try to become a sports mecca, as all of these things converge, how do you see Las Vegas kind of taking that and facilitating it?
Well, it seems like it's all happening very, very quickly, but the area is really embracing it. We were driving around and we saw the Formula One and what they're building up and the infrastructure, right? And this is all about infrastructure. Everything that we're seeing right now in Las Vegas is about permanency. When you have these large events, a lot of times you build these gigantic structures and they say, well, maybe we'll see you again some other time. No, what we're going to see in Las Vegas is the Super Bowl coming back every 7, 8, 9 years. This is going to stay here. We have the Vegas Knights Boomer was talking about. We're going to get the NBA team. Summer League continues to be here. A lot of folks always talk about Super Bowls in New Orleans and Miami, but the fact that you get a place where you can have whatever you want here, I think is very, very obviously convenient, but conducive to holding large-scale events.
I want to get into a little bit of predictions, AFC West talks, and talk about the Raiders a little, but you particularly wrote about one of the rule changes that came up with the NFL having the flex games on Thursday Night Football. Raiders do have a game in that spell, which is from week 13 to 17. On week 15, they have the Chargers. I'm wondering, with the 28-day notice and just hearing about what kind of impact this may have on fans, on teams, on the players, what are your thoughts on that rule change?
Well, first of all, the sort of facts around it. The NFL is doing this in order to get the best games on television because there are far more viewers than there are people who will actually be in the stands. That's the fact of it. The opinion of it, and these guys could certainly speak to it a lot better, but I mean, when you're talking about fans having to figure out and book their flights, when you're talking about team football operations and, hey, you're going to play on this day. Well, actually, now you're going to play 3 or 4 days later. When you're talking about having your families impacted, rest on the body, all of these things, I don't really necessarily find it fair. And I think that the NFL very strongly hopes and believes that they're not going to get a lemon on Thursday Night Football, that everything that they have scheduled will remain scheduled there. And Roger Goodell talked about there's going to be an incredibly high bar before they move any Thursday Night Football game. I understand it's there. I hope they don't have to break glass in case of emergency, but it's there.
So coming back to you, Phil, as a former quarterback in the NFL, how does that impact the player to have that kind of notice on the game that you're anticipating on a certain day, certain time, and then all of a sudden it's flexed?
Well, I can't tell you exactly what the players would say in the locker room, but it's going to be rough. Words that I can't say here on TV. Look, you're a player. You don't want to admit 3-4 weeks ahead, you go, oh, now we're going to play on a Thursday night. The players hate this. They're going to hate it. They hated Thursday Night Football at first, but then it became okay, we only have to play one a year. So they could handle that. Now you're telling them it could be 2. Plus, when we move teams into that Thursday Night Football window, if it does happen, which they made it tough where it might not happen, but we're talking about teams that are going to be on Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football all the time, all the marquee teams. That's what they want to try to get. I don't like the rule, and hopefully they don't have to switch any of the games this year.
With that in mind, and as the Raiders look ahead to their coming season, it's not an easy schedule. And the AFC has become kind of nothing but a Shark Tank in terms of quarterbacks, right? Especially with Aaron Rodgers coming into the fold with the Jets, and then you have Joe Burrow, right? At the Bengals and what he's done, and obviously Patrick Mahomes. What right now would be the key for the Raiders team to come out as a better team than they were last year, coming off of 6 wins?
To me, it's the second year with Josh McDaniels. That's the one thing. I think that's a big deal. Jimmy Garoppolo is a very capable quarterback. They got better on defense, get a little more pass rush. Max Crosby, he can't be the only guy that plays defense for you. And, so I think the Raiders can compete in it. But the AFC, and, Boomer has a radio show, talks about it constantly, that it's ridiculous. It is. And I look at it like, if you go 10-7, that's a hell of a year right now. Because there's just so much great competition and so many good quarterbacks in the AFC.
Coach, when I start thinking about Josh McDaniels and how he can try to rebound off of a losing season, you came out of the Marty Schottenheimer coaching tree. And when I think about that as somebody that was a progeny of somebody else that learned under somebody else for a while, like he had with Bill Belichick, what does it really take for you to begin to formulate and frame your own methodology with a team and to kind of come out of, not necessarily the shadow, but to come out as being your own coach?
Well, and I think it does take time. He's trying to build a culture here that he believes in, and I know Josh very well. And I'll just go back to talking about a little bit about the Thursday night game. I would say this from a coaching perspective. I ain't worried about who we play in 4 weeks. I'm worried about who we play next week. So I think, with 4 weeks' time, I think that, no one's really doing much difference. I think it's not going to be a big deal. And I think if you're getting put into that position, number one, you're having a good year. If you've been taken out of that position, you have more issues than the schedule right now because, you're losing games. Okay, so, but I think Josh McDaniels, I love what he's done. I know he wants to run the football. Jimmy G comes out of a system with Kyle Shanahan where it's play action, and I know that's what Josh wants to do, which will take the pressure off the defense. I know he's trying to build a defense. He got another rusher in the first round of the draft, so he knows what he has to build on and what he has to build with, and I think that's the thing I like about Josh. And I think that again, he's building something here, and I think you got to give people some time not for him to understand what he has, but for the players to understand him. And I think that's a process that has to evolve, and I think that he's in the process of doing that.
And so, Boomer, going into what the thoughts of Jimmy Garoppolo and having that now under center, having him under center now, and the chemistry that it takes to develop with somebody like Devontae Adams. No matter how elite he is,
Yes.
I wonder, like, how long does it really take to kind of see a new relationship click or blossom, even if it is Devontae Adams?
Well, according to Devontae, he didn't need Aaron Rodgers.
Right,
So
right.
maybe he doesn't need Derek Carr either. So, but I will say that Jimmy Garoppolo knows Josh McDaniels' systems from their days in New England, so that's a good thing for him. I just think that the AFC is loaded. When you look at all 16 teams, it's the first time I can remember in a long time where there isn't a doubt as to who the starter is. Maybe in Houston because of the rookie, Indianapolis a rookie. But when you think about it, I mean, all 16 teams know who their starting quarterback is. And some of the best quarterbacks in the league, starting with Patrick Mahomes, then Josh Allen, then Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Jimmy Garoppolo. Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes on and on and on. And we haven't even talked about Aaron Rodgers and Mac Jones and Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, it's an amazing AFC just ledger of quarterbacks. And I don't know where Jimmy's going to end up on that list come the end of this year. But I know one thing, they are in a very difficult division and in the better of the two conferences without question when I look at it from, just from the quarterback perspective.
Now, thinking of quarterbacks, this just kind of came to my mind. Tom Brady is possibly going forward to become a minority owner with the team. What do you think about Tom Brady and his involvement with Raiders, Mark Davis, and possibly now being an owner?
Yeah, you know what? There's nothing that Tom Brady can't do, especially with $370 million from Fox.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have been an owner myself back in the day, but I think it's terrific that he's a part of the owner of the Aces right now, the Aces here in Vegas. So maybe the Knights are next. He's got to have his hands in a little bit of everything. But, it's just great to have somebody of his stature a part of the Raiders. I know he's not going to have anything to do with the day-to-day operating of the team and all that. He's just going to be a minority owner. But I'm sure that that Mark Davis is going to be leaning on Tom Brady as some sort of, I just think he's going to look at him as an advisor. And good thing he's friends with Josh McDaniels. That's all I can say for Josh's sake.
Right. And Coach, I was thinking also about the A's possibly coming here to Las Vegas as we start talking about this sports town, and wondering your thoughts on just like seeing these Oakland teams now become a part of this town. And we mentioned NBA possibly even coming. Just what are your thoughts on the A's and the Raiders and how teams move and what that does for a fan base, especially the city of Oakland?
I mean, at some point you're transitioning, right? And I think that's the biggest thing. And you're feeling the feel of the Oakland. And one thing we always said about the Raiders, wherever they were at, whether it's LA, whether it's Oakland, whether it's Vegas, there's a Raider fan base. That's why you look at the stadium; it's so perfectly colored with black. There's black right there, right in the middle of this city. That's called the color and all the glamour and all the glitz that you have, and yet you have that big stadium, Allegiant Stadium, right there in the middle. And that, to me, it really does give it, a little bit of substance to this city. And I think that's the thing that sports has brought to this. It's been a city where they talked about entertainment. Now you're talking about sports, and you're talking about an identity with maybe a series of teams coming from one city to this. We've seen this all the time, and Baltimore goes to Indianapolis, and all the teams that have switched places. I think it's awesome, and I think that they're getting embraced. I think A's come here; they'll be embraced.
Yeah.
And this has been kind of a destination town for for entertainment. It's now becoming a destination town for sports.
Yeah, let me say this. Maybe the A's, now they have a little money, and they can compete against the other teams.
Yeah.
Right.
A little bit. I mean, that's how I look at it. For so many years, they did it without money. Well, it's not working anymore. They need help, and coming here is going to be a big help for
So
them.
you don't think Moneyball would work? You don't need to play Moneyball here?
No, you can play Moneyball here, but you need a little money to play Moneyball.
Yeah. You need money, period, to do anything here.
Yeah, here, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
That's so true.
So there's a couple more. Everyone can kind of just pitch in where you think the conversation leads you. I'll start with you, Phil. Just looking ahead this season, Super Bowl 58, February 11, 2024, Allegiant Stadium. What team right now do you think could possibly make that charge and be the ones playing in Allegiant? Do you have an early, super early?
Well, it's really early.
Yes, it is.
Look, there's a lot of
Come
teams.
on, man, pick them.
Yeah.
Don't worry. What do you think? I'm not going to? Listen, I wanted to pick this last year and I chickened out because I wanted to be clever. But I'm going to say right now, I'd say the Philadelphia Eagles. They didn't get worse, that's for sure. And the other one's the Baltimore Ravens. I can't wait to see this Baltimore Ravens team. They figured it out at the end of the year on defense, and they got really good. And they had the Cincinnati Bengals probably beat, didn't come through with, a great play by Cincinnati, their defense, whatever. But I think their defense, and I'm excited to see Lamar Jackson and this new offense. And they only built the best running offense in history for the Baltimore Ravens, but that wasn't good enough. Okay, now we got to so they're going to transition some, and we'll see if they can throw the ball at a much higher level, but I think they're a really good football team and one to look out for.
Jonathan, in your opinion, do you think that the wide receiver situation for Lamar Jackson hasn't necessarily been there, and that now this is the catalyst that can help him even just kind of lead the team and the charge to a Super Bowl? Perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think he should be taking that step. And frankly, how they built that team was, we're going to run the ball. And so we're not going to invest too much at wide receiver, even though, they got Rashad Bateman and they were trying to add. They just maybe didn't add the exact right pieces, as Eric DeCosta's sort of alluded to. But now when you get the receiver they drafted in Zay, when you add on an Odell Beckham Jr., who, look, he's on the other side of 30. He has 2 ACLs, and so I don't know that he's going to be the OBJ that we saw with the Rams. Obviously, you hope so. Mark Andrews being one of the best tight ends in the league. So, yeah, you hope that Lamar can take that next step. Lamar also just has to stay healthy, and that's been the thing that's dogged him the last 2 years. But if he can stay healthy like he was 3-4 years ago when he was the MVP of the league, yeah, of course he can be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Boomer, Coach, would you like to pitch in on early predictions of the Super Bowl?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm hoping for the New York Jets to make it, because this place would be insane if they actually make it with Aaron Rodgers. It will be crazy, and those of us at CBS that have this game would love that for Super Bowl 58. If you had the Jets Eagles, Jets Cowboys, Jets 49ers, it would be ridiculous. And that's what we can hope for. But I still think that the Bengals with Joe Burrow are going to be the team to beat in the AFC. I still want to see what Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson have to prove. I mean, they just got 2 of the biggest contracts in the history of this league, and they really haven't proved much with that contract underneath. So they have a lot to prove to me this coming season. But I still think that Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes are going to fight it out in the AFC Championship game. If I had to make a guess right now, but I'm just keeping my fingers crossed for the Jets.
Yeah, so I guess we're all picking teams here, right? So I mean,
You're the one who said,
well,
show some courage.
I didn't say no. You interpreted it that way.
What was the attitude you did it
I
with?
see you are always very sensitive. So we have sensitive people up here.
You got to pick
So
the Steelers.
I did not. I didn't say
okay.
that. I do like the Jets. I think they're doing good. But I think when you look at the AFC, I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals. I think they just keep knocking on the door. I think they're getting there. They really haven't lost anything. I think their offensive line is there. I think defensively, maybe the safeties, they lost a couple of guys there. But, I think they're going to be just fine. And I'll tell you, I think Jalen Hurts played maybe one of the best games I've seen him play in a Super Bowl. They didn't win the football game, but he took another step in one of the biggest stages. And to me, they did not lose anything. And the only other dark horse team I think you got to keep an eye on are the Detroit Lions. I love what Dan Campbell has built up there. I like that their draft that they did. And I'll tell you what, that's a team, I don't know, when you talk about who they're playing at the end of the season, they maybe had not a great start, but that's a team that's looking out for it. And I agree with the New York Jets, too. The Jets are very, very good.
So is anybody going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs?
I did.
Okay, you did mention them, right?
Yes, I said Kansas City and Cincinnati in the AFC Championship.
Right. For a 6th straight time, Kansas City would be in the AFC title game, right? And, you got 3 Super Bowl appearances the last few years. I mean, you got the best player in the NFL in Patrick Mahomes, another MVP. You got Andy Reid. Last year when they lost Tyreek Hill and everybody was looking at the AFC West and they were saying, well, Kansas City's going to take a step back and people are going to catch up to Kansas City. And then they just went out and won the Super Bowl. And the best Super Bowl maybe ever played against a very worthy and deserving Philadelphia Eagles team. They beat them. So I'm going to go with the team that has Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid every time, and I'll give you the field.
All right.
Wow. I'll take the field.
Take them. Take them.
All right. We'll talk about that later.
I did have one specific question for Coach, and then I have one last question for everybody. You once mentioned that Rod Woodson was possibly one of the best players that you ever coached. He's now coaching the XFL team
Yes,
here
he
in
is.
Las Vegas. I wanted to get your take on just how he's done and what you think maybe it takes for him to try to make that transition in as a coach and lead a team.
You know, it's interesting. I just talked to Rod after the season, and we talked about the season. And one of the questions I asked him, I said, "So, what do you think about being a head coach?" And it's a lot of things to manage. And I think the biggest thing for him is recognizing when he has to step in and take control of the game, take control of the team, and be involved with everything that's going on both sides of the ball. So I think he's ready to do that. I think as he mentioned, he goes, in almost every game except two, they were leading going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So they really weren't able to finish games. We talk about finishing the game and what that involves, and a lot of elements to it. So, you know, I think, you know, he's in it for the right reasons. He's talking about preparation. He's talking about the off-season program. He's talking about with his coaching staff, how much delegation he has to do and how much he has to be also being in control of. So we had probably an hour talking, just talking about those things. And it's one of those things, until you do it, you can say, you can tell people, but until you get in there, every situation is uniquely different. And I know one thing, Rod is looking at all the little things about his preparation, about how you break down the practice, and from the beginning of the season till the end of the season. These are the things that you don't see you see this big picture and you think, okay, I could do that. Then you get in there and you realize that it's a lot more involved. And I think he will continue to get better because he has a great understanding of the game, passion for the game. And it's not just about surrounding himself with a good staff and getting the right players in his system.
You know, I got to say this.
Yeah, sure.
I watched a lot of XFL games. So I saw Rod Woodson. And not only that, Heinz Ward was coaching
Yeah,
too.
Yes,
I
he
know.
was.
So I would
Yes, he
think,
was.
I
Sorry,
said, Coach is sitting there going, "Oh, what are you doing? Come on, come on!" And I swear that's what I was thinking. I was watching that. I said, Coach Cowher must be watching the TV, just and going crazy. But it was pretty cool. They were both being head coaches.
I made good. And I said he was, you know, the play calling. And I was trying to tell the guy when I got done, you can't throw. I go, Rod, you tell them that before they go out there, not after they go out there. I said, I'm going to tell you. So you think about it. I says, you can throw the ball. You throw early to run late. Think about it. You throw early to run late. I says, then it's a mentality that starts in training camp. You can evolve. Establish while you still have the pads on the running game. You can always, you're going to evolve in the passing game. That'll take place, but it's a mentality with the running game. And while you have pads on at training camp, that's when you establish it. And then as the season goes on, then you get a little bit more elaborate with what you want to do creativity-wise. And so I think for both those guys, they both will probably be running the ball a little bit more next year.
Last question is just Raiders and AFC West. We talked about the Chiefs over here, Jonathan, so I'll start with you. What do you think about the Raiders, this division, how they come out in the end?
I think they have a chance to be one of the wild cards. Listen, I'm not giving the AFC West to anybody but the Chiefs, and if there's going to be somebody else, it's going to be the Chargers. The Raiders have to prove it to me. Last year was supposed to be that year, right? And you bring in the shiny object at head coach, and then they took a step back. There's no question about it. And everyone took a step back there. So you got Garoppolo, and he knows the system. You got Devontae Adams, who's proven he can do it without Aaron Rodgers. You get a pass rusher. The back end of the defense has to play better. So whatever it takes, Boom, we were talking earlier, maybe 10 wins get you an AFC wild card. Maybe it's 9 because everybody beats up on each other.
Yeah.
But I think that's the best one could hope for with the Raiders, considering what that division is.
I'll just go left to right.
Well, I think Josh McDaniels, the one thing I thought about him last year, I thought he managed the games really well. That's always a big start for any team. But it's not like we're looking at the Denver Broncos going, oh my gosh, there's no way we can beat them. It's one thing to say that about the Chiefs, but you got the Broncos out there, and then the Chargers. Well, the Chargers, they did make the playoffs last year, but I wouldn't call it a year. It was so up and down, it seemed, or whatever. So the Raiders have a chance in this league. You hear all these stats every year. Teams that make the playoffs don't the following year. Who thought the Giants were going to the playoffs last year? So turnarounds, the league is so close. Turnarounds and getting to the playoffs, I think, is much more feasible now than it was in the past, for sure.
Yeah, I just will agree with me. It's a tough division to begin with. I think the one thing about Jimmy G is that no one's ever questioned when he's played. The question is, can he finish the season? right? I mean, his you know, and his health, and he can do so in this offense, which I think still is going to center around Josh Jacobs. I still think one of the best running backs in the National Football League. Devontae Adams, one of the best receivers, and I think they're trying to build that defense, which has got to be an integral part of them winning games. And a lot of times, winning games, and Josh knows this, is if you can help. How best way to help your defense, keep them off the field, control the clock, run the football, and then work the play action game off of that. So I think the health is going to be the biggest thing. Can Jimmy G stay healthy? And he's not been able to do it the last few years, and they got to run through Josh Jacobs.
You know, interesting is that, you know, we talk about Las Vegas and how great this place is. Well, it's also a lot of distractions for the players who play on the Raiders, I'm sure, on a weekday basis. I mean, there's just so many things going on out here. You know, they couldn't finish games last year. They couldn't put games away. They had leads. And that's one of the reasons why Derek Carr is not here. They had to go get another quarterback. They had to get somebody that they felt like could finish a game. I don't know if Jimmy G's that guy or not. All I know is that he's probably the third best quarterback in the division behind Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. So the AFC is tough. It is going to be tough sledding. I don't see the Raiders right now making the playoffs, but as Phil said, you know, it's early and so many things can happen. So many injuries can happen around the league. You never know how that's going to impact the team. But I just don't see them right now preseason as a playoff team. Sorry about that.
Well, thank you everyone very much
All
for
right.
your time.
Thank you.